They could be maybe forced into this as an example. But yeah, look, £76 million. That's his current valuation. Chelsea are going to have to pay at least his valuation, and maybe even pay a little bit of Prem tax. Maybe a little bit of Prem tax on there as well.
He's not worth 90 million.
But we know no player gets sold for what they're worth realistically. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If he's 90 million, just go back to Sesko. Sesko's half the price, and you've been recruiting him. Sorry, I'm not paying 90 million.
Do you think Sesko's better than him, Staffy? From what you've seen,
it's not necessarily that he's better. He's just he brings a different element. Like I would rather have Sesko and Nkunku in my front line that bring different attributes than to have someone who's because Nkunku and Álvarez are more similar than Sesko and Álvarez. So if you already have Nkunku and you need to shoehorn him into the team next year because you're making all these signings anyways, you're trying to get Olise as well. So you're going to put Palmer in the 10, which means Nkunku can only play on the left or the front line. I'd rather have him and Sesko than to have him and Álvarez, especially for that price.
How much is Sesko?
He's like 45 to 50.
Still, it's a bit of a risk though. Unproven.
Is it a risk when you've been scouting him for years now?
Well, yeah, of course. Like you can scout, you can go. Do you know what? Yeah, okay, yeah. The profile of the player, he's got these attributes, these strengths. Yeah, he scored some goals, but you bring him, into the intensity of the Premier League, into the pressure of one of the top clubs in the league. It's different. We've seen it time and time again. You know what I mean? We've had the Werners and the Havertz for Chelsea and things like that. Sesko could easily be another one of them.
Well, there's a risk that anyone ever flops when they go to a different team. So I get that 100%.
Yeah, but there's different. If you take someone that has been a great commodity, obviously not just great internationally, but great at the highest level in your league for the best team, I think the risk is less. I think in terms of forget the money, but in terms of a player that is going to be good, forget profile, just can do the job, is a good player. I think Álvarez is less of a risk than Sesko. That's what I'm saying.
In terms of being in the Premier League and doing it before, yeah, I hear it by that
and multiple seasons as well. Because how many seasons can you say that Sesko's put performance after performance?
No. I agree with you. I agree with you. And Sesko's younger, anyways. I understand there's an element of risk, but that's why also one of them is half the price of the other one. But one of them is half the price. That's what I'm trying to say. And Nkunku's a little bit on the experience side. So you got one that's not experienced and one that's more experienced. I don't know. I'm just looking at it stylistically and profile-wise. I would rather get, if I was Chelsea, I would rather get Sesko. I just think he gives him a different element.
Project youth though, or start to shift away. Keep some of the young players, but I don't think they need to put young players on top of young players and continue down.
I mean, Álvarez is pretty young too, anyways.
No, but I think he's more experienced at the highest level. You can look at young, like Saka. He's young, but you're not looking at him in the same way as a player that's, 21 years old that's played in, Austrian leagues and German leagues and them leagues. He's played at the highest level for his country, for his club, Champions League, Cup finals, all sorts of stuff. So
let me ask you this: when we talk about experience, what parts of the pitch do they need experience in? Because I think they need an experienced goalkeeper, as an example. I feel like no one should usually ever go for young goalkeepers. That's the one position that you don't want a kid in. So you usually get experienced goalkeepers. That's fine. They just signed Tosin Adarbayo, who's 27, 28, something like that, and he's been playing in the Premier League, so he got Premier League experience. So that's one more position there. Why not go for a young striker? I understand that you would prefer.
That's one of their biggest gaps, though. That's one of their biggest.
But maybe they are looking at it the other way, though. They're saying, look, Tosin's got the EPL experience and age. Álvarez is young but got that experience, and it's almost if they add 3 or 4 players that are from the Premier League that are still, at the peak or coming into their peak, it could help. I think it's an interesting one. I think the Sesko one as well is just who else is involved? Do they feel they can win him? Because if they feel like he's going to go Arsenal, then they have to start looking elsewhere. Another Arsenal story that sort of keeps coming up is Newcastle are adamant they're not going to sell him. But there's also a lot of reports they've got to sell players, they've got PSR issues, etc., etc. Could any of you see Arsenal going back in for Isak, or do you think this is one that is just too far away from Arsenal to get?
I don't know why Arsenal fans want him to be sold on a cheap. Newcastle signed him for 70 million, by the way. I feel like a lot of people don't know that. They paid 70 million for him. So when they asked for 100 plus, margin-wise, that's a decent profit. Because I heard people saying, no, he's only worth 80 to 90. Like, there's no way they bought him, gave him 2 seasons or 1.5 seasons, got all these goals, and they're going to only sell him for 10 to 20 million more. Like, it just logically doesn't make sense. They'd rather keep him than to just sell him for such a small margin. So I think Isak would be an ideal signing for them. They're just going to have to pay a lot for it. And if they're ambitious and they want to win the Premier League next season, he's a very good signing, and it would be a step in the correct way. But I think you're going to have to break the bank for him. I'm not going to lie. You paid 100 mil for Rice. You're going to have to pay something closer to 150. I don't think he's worth 200. I understand Newcastle quoted him at that. Usually sellers quote their stuff at a higher value than it is because they know someone's going to try to haggle them anyways and negotiate. They're not just, and no one is going to just say, oh, 200 mil. Okay, we accept it. It's not FIFA. It doesn't work like that. They'll negotiate. But they'll probably bring it down to 150. But I think that's the price that he will actually go at if they try to get him. And I understand
the PSR thing, I think the deadline for them having to sell players by the 31st, I think it does weaken their hand. And this is what I was speaking to a Newcastle fan about this because when it comes to selling players, because he's saying, well, we got a lot of players that there's interest in that we want to get rid of. But if you're a club, and you're the buying club, and you know they're under pressure to sell players by the 31st of June, that's their deadline to sell, not your deadline to buy, then you're relaxed. You're sitting there going, look, we want to buy this player, but we ain't paying no 200 mil. We ain't paying no 150 mil. We'll
I agree. And I think that's why there's been very little transfer activity so far, very little, because there's 5 or 6 teams in the Prem that have got these issues. I'm sure there's multiple across Europe that have these issues. And I think there's a lot of people it's always slower in a year where there's international football because a lot of the players are also away or with the nations already around the world. But I also think that that's playing a part in it because clubs are waiting. Even if you're like a Newcastle when you want to spend, it's by the 31st of June. So you're not going to spend. You're definitely not going to buy anybody before the 31st of June because that's going to mean you've got to sell even more. So. And then
people are saying that Sky deleted the tweet, but that was because of the Chelsea thing, right? They retracted, so the other clubs...
so they've retracted the bit about Chelsea needing to sell.
So as of now, fans, don't get too relaxed. That's the only reason.
Yeah. Super chat here says we need to also get another other spots and very good players in those spots. It's the only reason I'm hesitant about breaking the bank on.
I agree with you.
That's true, and that's why I think. Yeah,
I have actually an opposite opinion on this. Not with Tevin, the whole striker thing. I've thought about this a lot. I actually don't think Arsenal need a striker. I'm gonna be very honest with you. It would be nice to sign a striker. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's their main priority. Because I really thought about this. I heard all the arguments that Arsenal fans has given me. They told me stuff like, "Oh, but we need someone to help us, as an example, get over the line versus Bayern or Porto in the Champions League." Really, when we watch these games, they didn't have a finishing issue. They had a creation issue. They weren't creating chances. So it wasn't a day where like no one looked at that loss to Bayern. And they were like, if they had a better striker, he would have finished these chances. They just weren't good enough on the day. I actually don't think they need a striker. I think it's an easy cop-out to why how they could win the league next year because they don't rate Nketiah, they don't rate Jesus, and they don't rate Havertz. I hear that. But when I look at a team that scored 91 goals in the league, I'm sorry to not think that you need more goals. I understand that that's not how football works. Sometimes you just need a different dynamic going into next season because we've seen Martinelli as an example drop off. Saka, I don't think he had as many goals as the year before. Neither did Odegaard, but people like Havertz chipped in with goals. People like Rice chipped in with goals. Trossard, obviously. So that helped out. I don't think they need a striker. I don't think they need to sign anyone for that much money. I think they need to actually reinvest in that midfield and a left wing.
Yeah,
I really stand on that when I think that's the 2 priorities that they need. Because Martinelli is not good enough. Hear me on this, Terry, and I don't want it to happen because he plays for us. Rashford links is not a bad thing. I heard a lot of people say keep him away from my club. If
he would kill it at Arsenal.
If Rashford goes to Arsenal, I promise you that's at least 15 goals. 50 would be crazy. 15 goals.
I hear you on that. Final few super chats here before the end of the show. Terry, why aren't Chelsea getting Victor Osimhen? Listen, I don't know, but no one seems to want to buy him. So there's something in that for me, whether it's he's being priced out or maybe he's not as good. I don't know. Staffy dissing Bowley, but he's wearing the cap of the Dodgers that he owns. I believe cheating and lying are anathema to sport. So I hope City get their dues. Thank you, bro.
Let me ask him something on that super chat, so hopefully he can respond. Because probably his intelligence is not that high. In what part did I diss Bowley? Because I said there's a potential that if City fall out with the league and Chelsea back City, they might try to create another Super League. Was that a diss?
I didn't see it as a diss myself, but there we go. If Chelsea get Elise and Álvarez, I like the attacking options with Palmer being more of an advanced 8. I also see Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo rotating a lot. Well, about to say, if you're going to put the Palmer back into the middle, then who misses out in that group? That's an interesting one. One issue with Southgate is moving from international football to club football. The day-to-day of club football is vastly different. It's usually the opposite. I hear you on that. That's a great point there, Patrick. So plunging in cash debt-free, the Premier League will just be state-owned clubs at the top, and you'll get the hyperinflation in 15 years are on 200k a week, have never played a professional game. It's true. There is that true. The irony is as well, if you just allow endless spending and the richest owners, all you're going to do, and this is the way the world, it'll be a little bit like Animal Farm. If anyone's read the book, you'll have the clubs that are smaller that have richer owners. In 5 to 10 years' time, they'll have the monopoly in the same way they're moaning about now. So the irony in it is, if you really want to create an equality, what we actually have to all vote for is spending and wage cap so that no one can spend any more than anybody else.